The John LeBang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John LeBang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings, and alert the media. We're back, and we're fired up. My friends, welcome to another broadcast here. We're joining you from the Banger Studios in this wonderful winter wasteland that somehow just appeared over the weekend. We had great 60-degree weather earlier in the week, and now we're down in the 30s, and we have snow. It snowed last night. It was beautiful snow. It looks beautiful. It doesn't feel so beautiful, but hey, we're in spring. It's Michigan. That's what happens. Well, we got a lot of things on the agenda tonight, so I hope you want to get comfortable and get yourself prepared for a interesting night of conversation. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We've got a little juicy Smollett news that we want to touch on a little bit later. We've got all kinds of weird news, some headline news for you. We might bring in Shady a little later for the dumbass report. All sorts of things, but I want to begin the broadcast by discussing the Mueller investigation, and not necessarily the investigation itself, because we really covered that last week on the broadcast. But I really want to talk about how the media, the malpractice media, has been carrying on ever since this report has been made. Well, it's not officially made public yet, but we found out that there's no Russian collusion, nothing at all that relates to any of that. And we found out that the election was a legitimate process and Donald Trump won fair and square. Now, the media, who for over 2 years have been talking about Russian collusion, and these are groups, ladies and gentlemen, that have sources inside the government, and they have far larger budgets than little old me have. I mean, the way I have to do research is I go online to, well, let's just say there's a Mueller investigation. So I go and find out all the public information that I can find, because that's the same information that they're gleaning from. I mean, they raided a couple places and got a bunch of documents from people, but, you know, that I'm not privy to. But overall, the information was there for most people to go into and read and then get from it what you got from it. So I was reporting all this throughout the years, these past 2 years, while the mainstream malpractice media was giving you a different view of what was happening with the collusion and the Mueller report and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, just in the last week and a half or so, we find out that everything the Banger was telling you. Remember, I don't have that big a budget. I actually have to go read things and dig deep the best I can, right? I don't have these giant budgets the mainstream malpractice media have. I don't have the connections, although I do have my sources of information. I don't have the vast array of sources that the mainstream media has, or other larger independent media, such as Alex Jones, who has probably a vast supply of people he can turn to that would be considered experts in the field or have inside knowledge that they themselves are privy to. But all the while, I was telling you about the Steele dossier and who paid for it. That was rarely, if ever, maybe Fox News, but rarely, if ever, reported in the mainstream media. And I was reporting that the reason they got the FISA wiretaps were, they were able to, get deeper into the Trump organization through warrants was because of the Steele dossier, which was financed in all relative terms by the Democrat Party and the Hillary campaign. And most of it we have found out through information that was fairly readily available and that I reported to you here, that most of that was fabricated. It wasn't true. It never happened. Yet that was how they got the warrants to tap the president to try to infiltrate. It's come out, ladies and gentlemen, that they were trying to get people inside the organization to accept wiretaps so they could find out inside information on the president or just prior to. That's an incredible thing that the links that the FBI was going to. Now we found out through all the hearings and Peter Strzok and all these other people that were involved, that there was a group of people inside the FBI that was trying to take down the president because they were politically against him. I was reporting that. Remember, it might have been a year ago, maybe even a little further back, that I was talking about the coup inside the government. Now, that was information I could find out. Yet the malpractice media either didn't want to see that information or they consciously made the decision not to report it to their listeners or their viewers. So the people who followed the malpractice media never had the full story, never understood the full scope of what was going on. And that was, in my opinion, due to the bias of the mainstream malpractice media. We used to call them the mainstream manufactured news, but I like the malpractice media. Because that is exactly what this Russian collusion story was all about. In the end, it was nothing about nothing. Not to mention this investigation that took place cost anywhere upwards of $30 million or better. $30 million or better. So we have, on one hand, the mainstream malpractice media not giving you the full story. On the other hand, it's costing a fortune to investigate something that was based on a phony dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. Yet, the mainstream manufactured news still has far more viewers and listeners, even though there has been a little drop. People might be catching on. Now, I don't know where they're going to go for their source of information. Hopefully, it's here to the John LeBang Show. Because if I made that kind of mistake, let's give the malpractice media the benefit of the doubt. If I made that enormous of a mistake by reporting for years on something that wasn't true, and then when it is public that it wasn't true, I didn't come out and say, hey, I'm sorry that we screwed up on that. Please forgive me. it was bad information we were being fed and we ran with it because we had a political agenda? The mainstream media isn't going to admit their fault in all this. They're the reason the country's so divided. Because they were reporting that the president was colluding with a known enemy, according to them. And that affected the election. And there was no way Hillary should have lost. That is how the media was reporting it. In fact, we've got plenty of sound bites for you. Let's play you a few minutes of a 5-minute clip just so you know that I'm not making things up and how they were reporting things that in total contrast to how the Banger was reporting things. The Banger got it right. Less budget, not as many sources. I just actually investigated on my own. Here's what the mainstream media said for 2 years.
Breaking news.
Oh, my God. Oh, breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians.
I'm confident now, even more so than I have been throughout the last year, that this nightmare presidency of Donald John Trump will end prematurely and end soon.
If we discover that Donald Trump or his advocates played a role in helping to devise strategy, if they're the ones who came up with Crooked Hillary, I think that is something that would put the question squarely on the table whether or not he should be impeached.
It supposedly happened in 2013.
All right, that's enough. We'll continue to play that throughout this period here, but I just wanted to jump in real quick here. You see the lies these are massive media sources that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of listeners, and they were fabricating or at least echoing a fabrication on a story, which means they were either not doing their job in investigating, because I investigated and I told you exactly what happened. In the end, go back. I could play hours and hours of the John LeBang Show for you, discussing this very subject. I was telling you the dossier was a bunch of crap. The president did tell you they were wiretapping him, right? It technically isn't wiretapping anymore, but they were listening in. They were getting information through nefarious actions because they used a phony dossier to get warrants to do such a thing. Let's go back to the mainstream malpractice media for a moment, if we may. This is what they were saying while the Banger was telling you the truth.
It is us as American citizens, it is us in the press who are connecting the dots on this story, who are figuring this out.
Did the Trump campaign, did the candidate at the heart of it conspire with Russia to subvert American democracy? And does Russia have some kind of leverage over Donald Trump?
If this BuzzFeed News report is true, then we are likely on our way to possible impeachment proceedings.
If this story is true, we must begin impeachment proceedings.
This is suborning perjury. I think there's no question it's an impeachable offense.
But the Banger was telling you all along something entirely different than what the mainstream malpractice media was telling you. And I know it sounds like I'm, pumping my chest a little bit, but hey, I'm the only one that's going to tell you that I told you. I know there were other sources out there, but no one's going to tell you, the Banger, he was right. He was right.
This president needs to be impeached.
And you should be listening to the Banger.
The spirit of what Trump did is clearly treasonous.
Then we have the Nancy Pelosi. Now we have the whole Democrat Party. They're not happy with the report after. This is another development. They're not happy with the report now that it's out. They want to see every page. They want to see everything because that's just to keep their base angry. The people who were led to believe a false story by the mainstream manufactured news, the Democrat Party.
This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question.
I think he's feeling the noose around his neck.
Ferris Mueller's day off. Well, we'll talk about getting off a little later for Juicy. We got to go to break, folks. So on the way out, we'll play you a little bit more of the montage of the mainstream manufactured news, giving you a bunch of BS about something that, well, wasn't true. And then when we return, we'll discuss more. And we might, we'll turn off the banger cam for a little bit, but we might bring it back a little later. Be right back, folks.
The noose is tightening, and I think they're shocked that the noose is tightening.
He feels the noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening.
The sound of hoofbeats of all those investigations catching up with Donald Trump must be loud in his ears.
Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John LeBang Show will be right back. Does your house need a paint job, but you don't want to do it? Then call Tom at Quality One Painting. He can handle all of your interior and exterior painting needs. He gives free estimates and senior discounts. Call Tom at Quality One, 313-982-2986. That's 313-982-2986. Quality One Painting.
You're listening to the John LeBang Show.
And it's so much fun. Why you keep talking? Oh, am I not supposed to? No. Oh, back to John. And thank you for coming back. Hope you enjoyed that first little segment. Gonna touch on a little bit more because, well, I think it's very important that the people of the world get a dose of what the mainstream media feeds them, and then understands that, or at least understand that they need to drop those sources. Just because they have a lot of money, just because they have advertisers, doesn't make them a good source of information. In fact, because they get money from giant advertisers, they're pretty much bound to promoting the news in a certain light. So, let's go over some of the things that were direct lies and who told them. CNN accused Don Jr. of WikiLeaks collusion. This is one of the big ones. Last December, CNN's Manu Raju reported that WikiLeaks emailed Donald Trump Jr. to give him access to stolen documents a full 10 days before they were released to the public. I don't even know if that's against the law. I don't know what's up with that, if that's a problem. But anyways, that's what they reported. Unfortunately, for CNN, that is, it turns out that their source that gave them the wrong date, when Don Jr. actually received an email with access to the stolen docs on September 14th, 2016, after they had already been made public. So he could have went and got them anyways. They sent it to him. I don't even know, because I don't know the law that well, and I don't see a problem with that. I guess receiving stolen documents is a problem, but once they're released to the world, everybody's got them. Number two, this is another big one. ABC tanks stock market with fake Flynn news. ABC was forced to suspend Brian Ross after falsely reporting that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was prepared to testify that then-candidate Donald Trump ordered him to make contact with the Russians. Again, I don't know if that's against the law, but that was being reported by the ABC News. The stock market then dropped a few hundred points from the news. ABC declared that Flynn was actually prepared to testify that Trump asked him to contact Russians while the administration was transitioning into office. That's pretty standard preparation for an incoming president. You start contacting foreign leaders. Hey, I'm going to be president, or I'm representing the next president. Like to open some dialogue so we can get the ball rolling. Remember, Hillary already had some of the balls rolling, and that's what was when she didn't win. It was a big, oh my goodness moment. That's why everybody was freaking out. They thought Hillary, because the malpractice media again told you Hillary was going to win. Donald Trump had no chance of winning.
And then there's the Russia investigation.
Layers upon layers upon layers of lies by the mainstream malpractice media, and how they have so much viewership, so many people following them, and the banger has trouble keeping subscribers and followers and getting people to check out my stuff because, well, we'll get into that a little later. Number 3, the mooch is not under investigation. CNN earns another spot on the list for their shoddy reporting about former Trump advisor Anthony the Mooch Scaramucci. Now, in June 2017, CNN relied on a single unnamed source to claim that Scaramucci was under investigation for a meeting he took with a Russian banker prior to the Trump inauguration. The Mooch denied the story, and CNN later gave him a much-deserved apology. They actually came out, and 3 CNN employees resigned over the botched piece. Number 4, we've got Bloomberg, the dirty douche bank scoop. Bloomberg initially reported in December that special counsel Mueller had zeroed in on Trump by subpoenaing Deutsche Bank records for an incoming president and his family. Bloomberg later admitted that Mueller was looking for records related to people affiliated with Trump. Number 5, Sessions being exonerated. Last May, CNN was sure that Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, had botched protocol when he didn't list meetings he had with Russian ambassadors on his security clearance forms. To CNN and other media establishment types, this was proof that Sessions was hiding something related to Russia. A little over 6 months later, CNN quietly walked back the scandal, explaining that the FBI had sent emails informing Sessions' aide that he did not need to disclose the meetings on his forms because they were carried out in the course of his duties as a senator. All this is being reported by the mainstream malpractice news. All fabrications, all lies, all misdirections, all information that either turned out to be false or that was blatantly distorted to push a narrative. How about Russians aren't just hacking the elections, they are hacking our power grid. Do you remember that one, ladies and gentlemen? The Washington Post claimed in 2007 that the Russians were hacking the U.S. power grid through a company in Vermont, only to change their story to say only one laptop was infiltrated. It turns out that the laptop was not even connected to the power grid. How about Republicans funding the dossier? You know, the Steele dossier. A number of news outlets had consistently claimed that Republicans initially paid for the anti-Trump Steele dossier, failing to note that Steele wasn't even contracted by Fusion GPS until after the GOP donors pulled funding. The Republican donors say they paid Fusion for standard opposition research, and they have zero connection to the dossier. Man, I have a little trouble talking tonight, folks. The media has perpetrated this falsehood so consistently that even former FBI James Comey was confused, repeating the lie in an interview with Fox News Let's go further because we've got more. CNN gets Comey prediction widely wrong. Prior to former FBI Director James Comey's congressional testimony last June, CNN asserted that Comey was prepared to contradict a key claim by the president, that Comey told him he was not under investigation. Sadly for them, Comey prepared testimony was released with the line, "During one of our one-on-one meeting at Trump Tower, I offered the assurance that he was not under investigation."
We know the Russians were involved in interfering with the election.
How do you explain the Manafort allegations as anything but collusion?
His associates were under investigation. Trump by proxy was also under investigation. So the FBI lied to the president. Guess you can't tell the person you're investigating that you're investigating them. Number 9, the 17 intelligence agency lie. You remember this one, ladies and gentlemen? The media perpetrated a false claim from presidential candidate Hillary Clinton for months, insisting that all 17 agencies agree that Russian interference in the 2016 election was true. New York Times even, for example, rated that claim as true only to later say the exact opposite. Only 4 intelligence agencies ultimately deemed Russia responsible for meddling because the other 13 have no business making judgments on that claim. As the New York Times succinctly explained, the rest were doing other work. It wasn't even their jurisdiction. Yet the mainstream media and Hillary Clinton, false lies. It's okay, I guess, by them. NBC botched its big scoop claiming that the Manafort notes from the meeting with Russian lawyer included the word donations near a reference to a Republican National Committee. Turns out, not only did the word donations not appear in Manafort's notes, but the word donor didn't either. The Politico had to correct the NBC report, leaving the legacy network looking awfully embarrassed. See, we've got plenty of these instances that the mainstream manufactured news lied to you. Here's some more snippets for you if you want to be entertained.
I think they're all going to jail. Well, I think they're all going to end up together in prison, and maybe that's a good thing. Oh, my God.
He has no idea that he's going down.
You're confident that at least some Trump associates will wind up in jail?
If I was betting, I would say yes.
Donald Trump has been a Russian intelligence asset since 1987.
How about, did Cohen go to Prague? Well, a Malpractice report stated that Special Counsel Robert Mueller had evidence that Michael Cohen visited Prague in the summer of 2016, which seems to corroborate the portion of Steele's dossier claiming Cohen visited Prague at the time to meet with Kremlin officials. Well, didn't go out that way. No other outlets ever confirmed the report, and Cohen told Congress during an open hearing so we all could see it. I think I even played it, if I'm not mistaken, but even if I did, that doesn't matter. In February, that he has never been to Prague.
We are at war with Russia. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum. Russian scum.
They're number 13 on the list. We've got a huge list of these. We can go all night on how the malpractice media gets away with lying, and then either they walk it back later or they just kind of ignore it and hope it goes away. Or they're doing what they're doing now. They're blaming Trump. That's great, because this is another thing in the mainstream media. They're blaming Trump for all this because it's all Trump's fault. It's his fault. Nobody trusts the government. Nobody trusts anybody. It's his fault that there was a Russian investigation on him. BuzzFeed claiming that Donald Trump directed his lawyer to lie about a potential business deal in Moscow during the 2016 presidential campaign. Well, that didn't happen. BuzzFeed was used to float impeachment proceedings on top of it and obstruction of justice charges against the president. But Mueller's team disputed the core premise of this reporting. Mueller himself. BuzzFeed description of specific statements to the special counsel's office and characterization of documents and testimony obtained by his office regarding Michael Cohen's congressional testimony are not accurate, according to his spokesperson, Peter Carr, said in a statement to the Daily Caller. And we have more and more. We've got Lanny Davis obliterates CNN about the Trump Tower stories. We got the NPR accused Don Jr. of perjury, spies infiltrate. It just goes on and on and on. The list of falsehood that the mainstream malpractice media perpetrated and lied about and deliberately brought to your viewing screens there. And hopefully, finally, the mainstream public are going to realize that the media isn't worth their time of day, and they'll migrate over to people like myself. Legally migrate. We've got to go to break.
Don't move a muscle. The John LeBang Show. Be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes! Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane and the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John LeBang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John LeBang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John LeBang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We'll put that Mueller story to bed. Mainstream manufactured news. I think I've made my point. Let's get into these mainstreamers because, again, we've got all kinds of other things in the news, and well, we need to talk about them. First off, the White House warns of an EMP attack on the U.S., and we should prepare for that. That's just something they always do. Senate votes down Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, wiped it out. It was unanimous, gone. Ocasio-Cortez also is pitching an increase for members of Congress because they need more money. They need a pay increase, even though most of us haven't had a massive pay increase in years, and I don't know why anybody in the mainstream political structure should get a raise when they can't get anything done and they already spend way too much. We're going to get into that story because we have that. We are now, and this is just awful, we are now, federal spending hits the highest level in years under Donald Trump. Remember, he signed that bill into law, and then in a related story to that, and the debt increasing, he signed that into law so that he could get some money for the border wall and they wouldn't have the government shutdown, and then they fought him on the wall, so he had to declare an emergency. Well, they had a vote to stop the emergency. It went through the Senate, passed. The president vetoed it for the first veto of his tenure, and then it went back there to try to override his veto, and they couldn't do it, just like the banger told you. This was all political theater. It was for everybody to get a win, and, now Trump's going to build the wall with military funding. And that's that. There's nothing they can do about stopping it. Biden, accusations of Biden touching women. Biden doesn't just touch women. He touches little girls. He just likes to touch. The dirty old man likes to touch. So why he's even a candidate for president is beyond me. fact, the entire selection of Democrat candidates are a bunch of either extremely crazy people or nobody that even has a remote chance of beating Donald Trump, because he is too popular, and he's probably going to get more popular as time goes on, now that the Mueller investigation is over and that cloud is off his head. No matter how hard the Democrats are going to claim they don't want to believe it, and the mainstream media might change the narrative to find some other kind of thing to focus on. In general, I think the president's probably going to gain some popularity. You heard it here first. His approval rating's probably going to go up as we get closer to the election. He'll win the election like we told you here before. And then we'll see if Ken Queso-Cortez will be the candidate in 2024. And if she is, I'm pretty sure the powers that be will put her in place, because I don't see anything on the Republican side that could honestly challenge her. So, let's see what else is... Oh, we have to get into this. Seriously. Juicy is back in the news, and that's because Juicy gets off. The prosecutor in Chicago let him off, even though Rahm Emanuel, the police chief, all say this is a whitewashing of justice. He was facing, I think it was like 40 years in jail. And not only does he get off, but then the NAACP awards him, gives him an award for being a great person of some sort. Can you believe the corruption that goes on? So Juicy Smollett, who pays people to beat him up or fake beat him up or whatever happened there, then claims it was about gay and racism, racial hatred, goes on all the talk shows, perpetrates this lie. All the talk shows, mainstream media. Wasn't it ABC and all the other talk shows trying to talk about this? I mean, we could probably play sound bites from all of them perpetrating this lie as well, because they obviously can't investigate. They don't know how to investigate anymore. So how they call themselves investigative journalists, I don't know. They're more like corporate hacks that just read a teleprompter. There is no prompters here in the John LeBang Show. None. We have nothing. We'd like to have a couple that give us a little note so we don't have to look at our little video screen here, so we could kind of keep it in front of us. But there are no teleprompters telling us the corporate fabricated news for us to tell you. We actually have to do it all ourselves. Somebody else doesn't research it and then pass it over to the guy reading it or the lady reading it in the mainstream media. Nobody does that here. The Banger goes and spends hours in researching. Just for this show, I probably spent a collective of 6 or 7 hours throughout the week gathering stories, prepping for tonight's show, then getting ready for the show. Showered, cleaned up, looking as pretty as I possibly can in this old age. But here we have the mainstream manufactured news, who, again, this is an indictment on those charlatans up there. Why do they get so many people watching them, listening to them, and the Banger has such trouble gaining massive support? Well, we can tell you that. That's because of things like shadow banning and other things that we might get into a little later. But Juicy's off. I don't know what you guys feel about it, but Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, says it's a whitewashing. The sheriff or the chief of police, whatever his title actually is, saying it's a whitewashing of the justice system. Yet he was off. He gets off. No, facing 40 years lying. This could have started a race war. Something like this could have started not only a race war, but public strife in the gay community. And it was all fabricated lies. Again, mainstream media, fabricated information. Why you digest it, why you even watch it, I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing that most of you probably don't understand in all this. You see, Juicy was really good friends with Barry up there. Barry and Michael. Michelle Obama. Barack Obama. Really, really good friends with them. Rahm Emanuel, who's acting, let's make this clear, they're acting like some kind of injustice is happening, although no injustice would have happened if the mayor and the police chief weren't on board with it. Because it's real simple. If the prosecutor wants to cancel all the charges on Juicy and you disagree with it, you're the mayor, you can fire that prosecutor. No problem, you can fire him off. You may not be able to get Juicy anymore, but if you disagree with the prosecutor so much, why don't you fire him or her? I didn't even look into who the prosecutor was because just the idea of the story made me shake my head. That they're gonna act like the police chief and Rahm Emanuel that they're against all this. But you see, they're buddies with the Obamas. Juicy's buddies with the Obama family. Prosecutor is. You see, they're all connected. So to let Juicy off because they were trying to start something. Good friends with Kamala Harris, too, by the way. It didn't work. They couldn't get the... because Kamala Harris, if you didn't know, she had a anti-lynching bill that she was a part of just prior to all this happening with Juicy. Most of you don't know that because the mainstream malpractice media wouldn't tell you that. They barely wanted to tell you that Juicy was lying. He created this actual hoax to possibly, could have turned out really bad for America. Could have turned out really bad if there wasn't people who caught him in this. And that was because he probably wasn't so smart. And the next time they try this, whoever they are, they're going to learn from this Juicy Smollett and his mistakes. And they're not going to let the cameras catch them in the falsehood. They'll just make sure the cameras see what they want them or us to see. And the ones that might show the actual truth will be, oops, those don't exist because we'll make sure those kind of cameras aren't in the area. See, they're going to learn from this. And some future false hoax perpetrated by people of the same ilk of Juicy Smollett and the Obamas and Kamala Harris and the mainstream manufactured media. When that next one happens, they'll have their bases covered a little bit better. This might have been a test run to see if they could pull one quickly over the head of the American people, have the whole country flip out. Because they want the division, ladies and gentlemen. You would think since the president is exonerated that a giant sigh of relief would have happened for the entire country. It would have been like decompression. Oh, our president isn't a colluder with our biggest enemy. You would think that not only the mainstream media, but everybody across the board would be breathing a sigh of relief that our president has been proven to not be a colluder with a foreign power. But unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be that way. It appears that they are going to continue to push an agenda that is anti-Trump, anti-freedom, anti-whatever, pro-progressiveness constantly. They're going to talk about race because they like to divide us on race, even though there's only one race on the planet. It's called human. They want to divide us among genders. They've done that so well that they've created genders out of nowhere. Used to be man and woman, male, female. Now it's every other gender. You can identify as whatever you want these days. And who cares what the reality of life is for you? If you want to identify as a specific whatever, ask Elizabeth Warren. She identifies as an Indian, as an American, Native American. When I probably have more Cherokee in my blood, in my lineage, than she has Native American in hers. I also have Spanish. I'm not going to get credit for that. You know, they look at me and I'm pale. You know, if you put me and Conquista-Cortez next to each other, she might only have a little bit more melanin in her skin than I do, but hey, you know, that little Spanish in me doesn't come through because the French is in me, right? I have French lineage, and that's pretty strong. The Italian doesn't, you know, the Italian shows up a little bit through the hair and all that. But all of a sudden, I don't know how I got on that subject. We got to go to break anyways, folks. I just went off the rails again, just hit the mic. So when we return, we'll do the fourth and final segment of this hour. We'll cover some weird news, some other topics. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Smoke them if you got them.
Because the John LeBang Show will be right back
after this.
That's guaranteed. Yes.
At Absolute Skin and Body Care, they only use the best laser equipment in the industry so that you receive the best results possible. They'll explain all the procedures in detail and answer all of your questions. Absolute Skin and Body Care. If you're looking for skin rejuvenation, laser lipo, or laser hair removal, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Their office phone numbers are 248-305-3000. That's 248-305-3000. Absolute Skin and Body Care.
You're listening to the John LeBang Show.
And it's so much fun. We like you to stick around to the end of the segment because we'll be giving you a chance to win a pair of tickets to Marvel's cinematic event happening this April called Avengers Endgame. And we'll be doing that a little later. But before we get to that, we've got to finish up a bunch of news that we just haven't had time to get to until now. Let's begin with this latest study that Americans are not having sex at a record level. Now, according to experts who study American bedroom habits, they say the number of factors that are driving this, what they are calling the Great American Sex Drought, but one of them is the age factor. You see, people in the demographic of 60 and older used to be at about 18% of the population, going back to the mid-90s. That's changed in recent years because so many baby boomers are now retiring, getting older. And because of that factor, it is now up to 26% of the population. That on top of many other things, including the fact that right around the normal for this historically has been, about half the population hasn't been engaging in sex for a year. That's what this study is based on. But the changes at the other end of this age spectrum may be playing an even bigger role. A portion of Americans 18 to 29 reporting no sex in the past year more than doubled between 2018 and 2008 to 23%. So that 10-year period doubled. And why is that possible? Since they are encouraging all kinds of sexual behavior, if you love it, you feel it, you do it, do it. But maybe, this is a banger opinion, maybe that is the problem. Because they're telling you that, hey, have sex with your guy, buddy, because you're a guy, is a cool thing. That people are confused about their sexuality and they're not having it until they figure it out. I mean, I don't know. But the whole thing that we're having less sex when it appears on the surface that sexuality, outward sexuality, is at an all-time high, the two numbers don't jive. So one must be affecting the other. And maybe the straight or the hedgerow is a little confused and wants to avoid it all because the factors of what's in the public eye. Also, what could be another factor is that apparently since, and I have one as well, so we're going to include me, bearded men look angrier than clean-shaven types when they are angry. But they look happier when they are jolly, according to scientists. Gotta love these studies. A team found some results. They did a study and they got these results and they published it in a psychological science journal, suggesting that beards change the way a man's facial structure is seen and help people make a judgment about a man's anger and masculinity. Unlike myself, who really doesn't need a beard to become attractive, a lot of guys would use beards, and this was a study we read probably back in November. Women found men more attractive, and the banger thought it was because a lot of guys were ugly and it hid their ugliness. It was like makeup for men. Now, they're saying it makes everybody look angry if you're angry, but you look more jolly if you're jolly. I don't know if it's done the same for me, but I've had a beard since October, and I've considered for weeks now if I was going to keep it or shave it. I've gone through different periods. In other news, woman gives birth to twins, but with different dads after cheating on the husband. See, Dad found this out. Unlike the United States, in China, they're having sex, and they're having lots of sex. This lady had so much sex that she got pregnant by two different men, had babies, twins, with these two different men, and Dad was like, hey, this one kid doesn't look like me. Of course, Mom's mad that Dad doesn't want to take care of the kid that's not his after they did a DNA test to find out it was, she was cheating on Dad. And why would you, as Dad, want to take care of somebody else's kid? Especially when Mom can't keep her legs crossed. So in China, they're having too much sex. Here in the States, they're not having enough sex. At least the teens and the 20s aren't having enough sex, and the old people aren't having sex. Everybody else is having sex. Gay sex, straight sex, sex with this, sex with that, trans sex, I don't know what kind of... They're having all kinds of robot sex. They're having all kinds of sex. In other news, fast food restaurant manager in Tulsa was arrested after she allegedly shot and killed a man who threatened her and spit on her. According to the Tulsa World, about an hour after the initial altercation, the guy who spit on this lady returned to the location. Police said that the young lady went out to her car and followed the guy out to the parking lot and then shot him in his car and then went back to work. He then drove to a Walmart in his SUV where he crashed into one of the entrances at the store and then he died. So he spits on her, then goes back for trouble, gets trouble, and gets killed over it. Lady went back to work. Other news, a woman has been arrested and accused of keeping 33 illegal immigrants in her Illinois home, allegedly forcing them to work and pay her hundreds of dollars of rent, childcare, and transportation, in addition to the thousands of dollars she said they owed her because she helped them get into the United States illegally. Probably Guatemalan because she brought everybody from Guatemala here. There were 19 adults and 14 children living in her home. People Men were living in the basement. They couldn't come up. The children were living upstairs. It was a really weird situation. Let's go to some music news, shall we? Ronnie James Dio hologram tour previewed in new trailer. Yeah, the tour is set to kick off on June 1st this year, with dates to be announced shortly. So I have a question for you. This is not the question that'll win you any tickets, but I want to know, would you really pay to go see Ronnie James Dio, a hologram of him actually, performing the songs that you could just put on an old video and go watch? Would you really go to a concert of a hologram? Is this how they're going to preserve musicians forever? We're just going to have holograms of all of our favorite artists forever. And this is going to be called live music in the future. Speaking of live music, the Stones won't be doing any for a little while since Mick Jagger, yes, Mick himself, is expected to be out for a little while because he's having a procedure done. But he's expected to recover fully, so he'll be back. The 75-year-old Mick Jagger will be back. Keith Richards, he never dies. He'll probably never die. The dude, whatever he's done, whatever drugs he's taken, has preserved the guy, and he's done. I don't know how he's been made it this far, but wow. In our final story, and this is our feel-good story, I guess. If you, it's sad, but it's really sweet. An elderly couple passed away 90 minutes apart, hand in hand in their deathbeds. Tom and Delma were married for 62 years. Talk about till death do us part. Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty. This is what you've all been waiting for. You sat through the whole hour to get to this. And you're like, John, come on. You made me listen to the whole hour just to get to this. We've got some show news before we get to this. Our 5th anniversary on Alien X Radio is going to be April 14th at 8 p.m. We want you all to tune in there. 8 p.m. Sunday, April 14th on Alien X Radio, our 5th anniversary. And we want you to come and celebrate with us. So now we have the trivia question. The one that's going to get you a pair of tickets to see Marvel's cinematic event this April called Avengers Endgame. It's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you the question, and you're going to send us an email. Get that pen and paper out right now. You're going to send us an email at jlebang@live.com. We're going to want to have the answer to the question. We're going to need your name, what city you're in, what state you're in, and what station you're listening to us on right now. Here is the question. Which Marvel MCU character has appeared in the most mid- and post-credit scenes? This covers the 21 current MCU films only. That's the 3 Iron Man, the 3 Captain America, the 3 Thor movies, the 3 Avenger movies, the 2 Guardians movies, the 2 Ant-Man movies, Spider-Man Homecoming, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, the Hulk with Ed Norton, and Captain Marvel. The first person to answer the question correctly and send it to my email, jlebang@live.com, will receive a pair of tickets to Avengers Endgame. The rules apply as follow. Only the residents of the United States can participate. I'm sorry about that, but that's the only way I can feel comfortable the winner will get the tickets on time. You have to know who it is and how many appearances. The question: which Marvel MCU character has appeared in the most mid and post-credit scenes. Send it to jlebang@live.com. We'll tell you the winner next week right here on the John LeBang Show. Now, with that being said, it's time to get on out of here. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, I'm John LeBang, signing off from the Banger Studios.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have